Today's reading comes from a chapter that has a lot to say about fools and foolishness, the 26th chapter of the book of Proverbs. Listen to verse 7. Like the legs of the lame that hang limp is a proverb in the mouth of fools. I just love some of the word pictures painted in the book of Proverbs, and I guess it proves that the wisest man who ever lived had a remarkable talent for taking complicated subjects and making them really easy to understand, like this proverb about foolishness. Here's a guy who knows everything and has read all the books, but it's all useless to him because he's a fool. I've probably said it 1,000 times. I'd rather hire someone with common sense and a strong work ethic than a dozen people who have a head full of ideas or a long string of letters behind their name, but not a lick of common sense. Now, that's not to say you can't have both. I've seen countless examples of it. But if I could only have one of the two, I'd almost always take the common sense, because someone with common sense can always learn the ideas, and they'll actually know what to do with them. And of course, common sense is something you don't get in a classroom or a textbook. You get it from life experience, from actually hitting the streets and trying your ideas out against the real world. Maybe that's why Solomon tells us that a wise saying in the mouth of a fool is like a limp, useless pair of legs. They've got the proverb, the principle of wisdom locked away in their memory banks, but all they know to do with it is drag it out at dinner parties in a feeble attempt to impress the other guests. But it's a useless saying, just like a bunch of idle chatter, because it hasn't made that all-important journey from the head to the heart. It hasn't become a part of who they are because they don't seem capable of actually putting ideas into daily practice. I'm reminded of someone I knew who opened a business, and to be fair, he really knew a lot about it when he got started because he'd read a lot of books on the subject, and he'd listened to advice from some of the brightest minds in the world. But in the end, his business utterly failed because he hadn't taken a single time-tested principle and actually done it. And it was a real shame because it didn't have to be that way. He could have had a great set of business legs to stand on, but instead, the weight of his head collapsed the feeble set of legs he had developed by never actually practicing what he preached. Now, in addition to your professional life, take the principle into your private spiritual life. The world is full of voices trying to tell you how to be a better Christian, how to draw closer to God, and how to become stronger as a spiritual person. But only some of those people, for all their insistence that their way is best, only some of them are actually bearing any fruit. Only some of them are striving to build the kingdom of God and quietly allow God to change their own characters into something distinctly more Christ-like. The rest of these people are described in Titus 1 verse 16, which says, "They profess to know God, but in works they deny Him, being abominable, disobedient, and disqualified for every good work." Telling the difference between these two groups is one of the principal keys for figuring out who's for real and who isn't. And sitting quietly and humbly at the feet of those mature Christians whose actions have matched their words over the long haul just might keep you from making the mistakes of a fool. And that's a better way to live.